I'm Nadia Gurwell.
I'm John Goliatino.
I'm Michelle Blanchard. Welcome to 30 Minutes. Welcome to 30 Minutes. I am your host, Michelle Blanchard. My guest today is Dr. Lori Malice with Searchlight Medical in Hopewell Junction, New York. Welcome to the show, Dr. Malice.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I am very excited about the show today because I have a growing interest in holistic medicine, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Lori, can you tell me, do you mind if I call you Lori?
No, not at all.
Do you mind if you tell me who you are?
Sure. I'm a Western-trained physician. I'm an internist specializing in geriatrics, which is treating the elderly population, and have a love for holistic medicine that's been going on for a long, long time in my life. Traditionally, I was medical director of subacute long-term care facilities and saw an increasing need to add other modalities to the treatment of my patients. In the population today, you have patients that are taking more and more medications, and especially in the older populations where they're taking 19 or more medications, side effects, so they get more medications, and it's this vicious cycle. Right. And I just said there's got to be a better way. So in the traditional Western medicine arena, I tried to set up ways where you can bring in other modalities like acupuncture or Reiki, which is universal life energy healing, and nobody really wanted to do it. Right. And right before I was able to set up a complementary alternative medicine department in one of my facilities, there was a changeover of ownership that totally went against any holistic, and I said, you know what? It's time for me to go my own way. So about 8 years ago, I opened up Searchlight Medical.
And why do you feel like people or the medical community is really not so open to exploring holistic treatments in that type of venue?
Yeah, it's so strange to me because you want to do the best for your patients, and clearly there has to be a blending. Western medicine has its ways of treating that are still needed, obviously, but there's other ways coming in. I call it like the new wave of medicine with energy healing, because the body is so strong in its ability to heal when it's given the right tools. And pharmacologically, it really is not the way that the body is meant to heal. Right. But my colleagues, which I thought would embrace people healing with the minimum of pharmacological aids, really are, I guess, afraid of it. One, because they aren't educated about it.
They don't understand it.
And two, they really fear that once people are now, there's such a grassroots role of people running to holistic, that they are so afraid, what am I going to do? If I can't write a prescription, where's my role? Right. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a patient who came in. She was diagnosed as having rheumatoid arthritis, which is swelling of the hands, and was basically told by her rheumatologist that she would be a cripple in 30 days if she did not start chemotherapy with a drug called methotrexate. Wow. She found me. I don't know how she found me, but she came to me, and we started doing another treatment that I do on demand, which is pulsed electromagnetic.
We'll get into that in a little bit, yeah.
But she clearly was being treated by energy healing, and with details that we can discuss, she didn't need the methotrexate, and with 6 months, her hands were totally normal. She went back to her colleague, to her physician, and she said, look, my hands are normal, and was very upset. Right. The physician just didn't want to know. So it's scary.
Absolutely. And as we've talked about, personally, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and met with an Western doctor. I always get those confused. A traditional Western doctor who prescribed medication. And for me, I really wanted to get off the medicine and find a way to really cure myself and figure out exactly what was going on. And the doctor was not open to exploring anything else other than taking the medication, and if the medication didn't work, then radiate the thyroid. Yeah. And at that point I was like, Yeah, I'm not going to do that. Absolutely not.
And I think that's what a lot of patients are finding. And when they come to me for whatever modality that they're getting, and they go and have great results, and they go back to their physicians, I go, have you said anything to them? Because I'm excited. And they're like, no, because they get upset every time I bring it up.
Yeah.
And that's very scary for me that they're not open to that.
Right.
You know, in China, the doctors only would get paid if they kept you well. If you got sick,
Right.
you wouldn't get paid. So we're kind of on the reverse end of not doing, you know, what we should be doing for our
Right.
patients.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the emotional connection to disease.
Wow, that's a big one. Western medicine is a little, you know, dragging their feet on that. They're coming around to realize that the whole patient, we've heard it, but not many physicians really dig into the emotional cause. One of the big things that I found in doing my holistic practice was that I was amazed at how many of my patients have emotionally rooted physical manifestations of their illnesses. I would say 99% of my patients, and I'll give myself 1% because I'm a Western physician, so I got to give myself a little leeway.
Right.
But the emotion is the first thing to happen. It's the easiest thing for us to express.
Right. Well, let's face it, we're all stressed out. We're all very busy raising children, working. So it doesn't surprise me.
Everybody that's coming in, their stories are varied, but they all are rooted in emotional issues. And the way to treat, I always treat root cause, because you can treat symptomatically, but it's kind of like jump starting a car battery. You jump start it, but if the alternator is not charging it,
Right.
you keep getting the same issues. So you've got to go for the root cause. And 99% of the time, it's emotional.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about what type of services, what type of holistic treatments you provide in your office.
My first one that I started with was acupuncture. Acupuncture is rooted in Chinese history medicine for like 3,000 to 5,000 years. We're such babies when it comes to that. It's about chi energy, and chi energy is in everybody that's alive, plants, animals. We are all electromagnetic beings, so we're energy beings. And the chi lives in what's called meridians, or avenues of energy. I always say my analogy is like the streets and avenues of Manhattan, where the traffic flows and everything's interconnected. And on these 12 avenues or meridians, your chi flows on both sides of your body and interconnects. So when there's an area of inflammation or a trauma or something, it gets blocked. So if you remove it right away, there's no problem. It's quick, and like the traffic, if there's an accident, you get there right away,
Right.
it flows.
Right. It doesn't become an issue.
Exactly. Unfortunately, you know, I have people coming in, how long have you had this for? Oh, 30 years. And then they expect you to treat, how many treatments? One? No.
Right.
It takes a little while. So the difference between acute, a problem, which happens like 24 hours, it's very quick. Chronic, which is like 30 days or more that you've had it, and the longer you've had it,
Right.
the longer it takes.
The more it builds up.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest thing with energy medicine. People are used to the Western medicine. I have a pain,
Right.
give me a pill.
quick fix.
The quick fix.
Right.
Energy medicine is not that way.
Right.
And, you know, works on the emotional, you know, part of it. It's almost like layers of an onion, where you have to get, you know, the onion, you get the easy layers off first, like the crunchy part. That's really easy. Then you start going into the deeper roots,
Right.
and it takes a while to do it. But I knock wood, wherever I'll knock. I've never failed with any of my patients who've stuck with me, but
Right.
it's not for everybody.
Right. And acupuncture seems to be more accepted than some of the other energy work that you do.
It is approved as a medical procedure. So I think that people are more open to it because it is a procedure. It's unusual to have a physician do it. Very rare that as a medical physician, I'm doing all my own treatments. But it is accepted. Interesting. I mean, the story of, I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
It was only brought in to the first, I think it was in 1971, when then President Nixon was going to China on his visit, there was a New York columnist that accompanied him. His name was James Reston, and he got sick over in China and had acute appendicitis. He was treated with acupuncture, and he had such a phenomenal result and experience that when he came back, on the front page of the New York Times, he wrote about his experience.
Right.
So all of a sudden, everyone's going, what's acupuncture?
Right, we have to try that.
He really opened up what's now alternative healing. He was the first one. And then people started looking at it. So think about it, that's 70s, that's not a long time.
It's 46 years ago.
We're
Yeah.
really in the babydom of
Right.
holistic.
Right.
But people are doing more and more, and insurance companies are waking up. When I first opened my practice
Right.
about 8, 9 years ago, insurance companies weren't even touch. Same thing with chiropractic. They wouldn't touch it. Now all of a sudden, more and more are offering it because I think they realize people are getting healthier and they're not using traditional medicine as much.
Right.
But that doesn't mean, let's say, if you're a diabetic, you come, you get acupuncture, go, oh, I don't have to
Right.
take my insulin. No, it
Right.
just means your body will metabolize and be more efficient
Right.
in what it does, so you don't need as much.
Right, and that's part of your service too, because you are a doctor and you use the energy treatments in addition to being a medical doctor. That's what we call complementary medicine, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Even though in my practice I really am only doing holistic, but I can't stop being a physician.
Right.
So, when people come to me, I'm always examining them. I mean, the first thing is that they have a pain. I have to make sure that Western medicine doesn't need to be invoked. And then we start working with energy healing and acupuncture. It really flows between acupuncture and Ondamed. Those are the two main ones. Reiki also, but acupuncture is really picking up. People are beginning to realize the benefits of it.
Absolutely. And let's talk about Ondamed.
Ondamed was interesting. That came about when I was doing acupuncture on my patients, and like I said, I go for the root cause. When I wasn't able to get them where I wanted to go, and I did as much as I could with acupuncture, I needed another modality.
Right.
And Ondamed came across my desk, and usually I use the rule of 3. If it comes across 3 times, I then say, okay, it's
You
a
have to
sign,
take a
I've
look
got
at
to take
it.
a look at
Yeah.
it. And I did my research. I'm very strict about what I bring in. I'm still a scientist in the back of my brain. So I really delved into it, the company and what it does. And Ondamed also works on chi energy. It's a biofeedback, but not the typical biofeedback where you think you're controlling your breathing and your heart rate. It is pulsed frequencies that are in the range of what your normal body uses, so about 32,000 frequencies you're exposed to.
Okay.
And then by checking your pulse, your body tells me, oh, okay, this is what I need right now, this specific frequency. So combinations of frequencies put stories together. So the biggest problem I have with my patients is they'll come in and they'll go, well, I have this problem with my shoulder or headaches or whatever. And the body will say, we can't go there yet. I have to put a certain grouping of treatments together that get you there. So you may want
Right.
A, but we have to start with S.
Right,
And
because it could be a little overwhelming for somebody to deal with some of those issues that may come up if you treat too aggressively. Is that the right way to say it?
Ondamed is interesting. It'll only give you what you are meant to have at that point in time.
Okay.
So it will work on the physical. It goes all the way down into the DNA. It's kind of what I call jump-starting your body. It works on foundations, so it'll give you energies to help your body be the most effective it can be in just the regular physiology, but it also works on the emotional and it works on inflammation. I have people with lupus, I have people with rheumatoid arthritis that it melted away the inflammation that we could physically see. But again, as a physician, I wanted some proof. So they also, I work with their primary care physician, so they get their blood work, they come back, and markers for inflammation were going down. So I went, okay, now that satisfied my scientific mind.
Absolutely.
And I was very pleased to see that it worked, even though I knew that it does. In the back of my mind, every time I treat a patient with
Right.
energy, I go, I hope this is going to work today. But it always does.
Absolutely.
It always does.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about acupuncture, we've talked about Ondamed. Let's talk about Reiki.
Reiki is different in that it's this invisible energy, but what it's called is universal life energy, which we all have. Anybody can be what's known attuned to it, so it's not a gift that you have to have. Any person can be trained to, and basically they say open the channels to receive this universal life energy force. And that was actually the first thing that brought me into alternative healing.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
It's a very strange story. My life has a way of throwing certain things when I'm meant to have it. I was not happy with the way my practice was going, even though I always worked in medical centers and long-term care facilities. I didn't like the way the patients were healing. They didn't really have quality of life.
Right.
And one day I was going to Barnes and Nobles to pick up books for a vacation, and there was a woman there doing a lecture on Reiki. I had never heard of it, although it's been around for, again, thousands of years.
Right.
And I said, Reiki, what is this? And I loved it because it's something that you carry with you always. You are a conduit for this energy where you are actually hooking into Mother Earth. And I'm going to do a segue because you should not cross your legs.
Okay.
Because you have to have the energy flow so you don't obstruct.
Okay.
But when you hook into this, you're hooking into the universal energy and really sending it through your hands. And usually my hands are ice cold, but when I do Reiki, they get very, very hot. And people feel a sense of calm. They feel a sense of warmth. And some people who are very sensitive feel actually energy flowing. It works on your chi, but on a totally different energy, trajectory.
Right.
And it works to heal, but it's intuitive in that it goes where it needs to go. So I know people, and it's funny because when I was in a Alzheimer's unit, I'd have my nurse go, Dr. Malice, so-and-so needs Haldol, they're acting up. And I go, just give me a minute. And I turn the Reiki on, and I'd be sitting at the desk, and the patient would be over there, and all of a sudden the patient would start calming down, and all of a sudden you see the nurse go, what are you doing? I said, you don't need to know. And I got the nickname Voodoo Doc because I do all this stuff.
Right, which is interesting because the person who's receiving the Reiki, and correct me if I'm wrong, they don't really need to be open to it.
Nope.
They don't need to be aware
Nope.
to some extent
Nope.
in order to receive the benefits of it.
And that's how scientifically I started doing my own little experiment because the Alzheimer patient had no idea what was going on, even if I touched them. But I did it without touching because touching, does give a sense of contact and it does increase your endorphins to calm down. So I usually did it from distance. And when they calmed down and they didn't need any medication, they were like, I'm going to myself, wow, this really does work. And I just incorporated it.
Right.
But it's not for everybody. It's a little, on a deeper spiritual level, but it works.
Right. Okay, let's talk about Chinese scalp acupuncture.
Wow.
Circling back to acupuncture, I find that very interesting.
That is a very specific one for brain issues like strokes, Parkinsonism, Parkinson's disease, tremors. There are points on the scalp, and acupuncture does entire body. It does also, there are people that only do ear, called auricular acupuncture, where the entire body is represented on the ear. And the scalp is the same way. The scalp has certain areas where you can go right into the parts of the brain to open up blockages. So like scar tissue, things of that nature. It is very, very specific, as you have to really get that energy going. But I've had people where they get immediate relief, again, depending on the length of time they've had it. Clearly, if it's a recent event, they heal much, much quicker. But if it's someone who comes in after having it for a number of years, it can help, but it may not be as quick as something else or as effective. Right.
And how do you know what is the best holistic treatment for somebody who's walking in for the first time?
They fall into different categories. It's interesting. People will call up and I'll always ask, what are you looking for? And they go, I want acupuncture. And I go, okay. I said, so we'll set up, for acupuncture. And my sessions, the first sessions are about 2 hours. So I have a long time to spend with someone to get to understand what their medical issues are, what their overall energy levels are. And while I'm in that interview, if I start getting responses that have to do more with emotional, or I just feel that acupuncture right now is really not the best and maybe too strong for them. They're not strong enough because acupuncture goes right into your chi energy level and you manipulate that. It may not be what they need, and I trust my intuition, but
Right.
also the story. And then I'll decide whether OnDemed is best or acupuncture or even Reiki at the time. So it always works out. Sometimes I'll start with someone with acupuncture and they'll do the best that they can. I'll go, we're not getting to this root cause
Right. You
because
kinda
it's
hit a wall.
emotional.
Right.
And then I said, let's switch to OnDemed, and OnDemed will come around on another way. You're still going to the same area, but it kind of meanders and picks up other pieces of the puzzle,
Right.
and then it clicks. And when people get that click, it's such an amazing healing moment.
Right.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. And are you seeing an increase in holistic treatment?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, but it right now, I think because unfortunately everyone is so stressed with the economy, with their personal life, it's like globally everybody is going through the same thing, that people are calling in. And because I am a physician, I may be a little bit more, expensive than regular acupuncturists, but I tell people, listen, doesn't matter whether you come to me, just start, do something.
Right.
One of the things that I find that people do is they do too much. You really have to pick a modality,
Right.
stick with it, and give it a chance. But by the time they come to me, they're so frustrated. They're
So
at the
desperate for an
ends of-
answer.
They're at the end
Yes.
of their ropes.
Absolutely.
They've been through, Western medicine, and I look at them and I go, you know what? If you just came to me as a Western physician, I would look at your chart, examine you, and go, I have no other thing to offer. But I examine their pulse, I look at their tongue, and I go, I know exactly what's wrong with you. And it's so empowering to do that. And people just have to trust the process. So it's the problem where I have patients that will finally get to a deep root, and then all of a sudden it's like they go running because they'll start going to a natural path and then come back with a bag of all of these, herbal medicines.
Right.
And herbal medicines, they have their place, but it's the same thing of what pharmaceuticals are. You take medications, but now you're just taking herbs in place of it.
Right.
One of the things that I'm learning, and this is one of my new endeavors.
I was
is-
going to ask you that,
yeah,
yes.
my new endeavor now is I'm doing a course for herbal medicine for physicians, which is really interesting that I'm picking this up because as a Western physician, I saw so many kidney failures, liver failures from herbs. Yeah, and I made the same face.
Right.
I went, I'm not going there. But now that I'm into it, if it's done properly, and I see it's not meant to be taken forever, which is great for a difference between that and Western med.
Right.
Western med, we put you on a med, and unless it's for an acute problem, you're taking it for life. Not only am I weaning people off certain medications,
Right.
but with the herbal meds, one, it'll make people heal quicker. It's almost like pharmaceutical acupuncture. So it's like a
interesting.
quicker way for people that don't want needles and want to have another modality. So that's going to be one of the new things that I'm bringing in 2018.
Oh, that's great. Do you want to hold up your little
Oh, sure.
your little sign to?
Thank you.
There you go.
And my logo is very interesting. It's all the chakras, which is
Oh, yes.
represents the healing portion. So the idea was to come into Searchlight Medical, and through the healing process, you go through all your healing, and then eventually get that internal connection with what you're meant to do in your life and
Your
heal.
life path, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, what is your website address?
It's www.searchlightmedical.com, and my telephone number is 845-592-4310. And I
Look at you,
answer
you're a
my
pro.
own phone. I answer my own phone, so people are
Absolutely.
very shocked to do that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where do you see Western medicine going? Where do you see the trend, given that there seems to be almost a global awakening of
That's well put.
energy?
I think people are getting more aware of what the energies can do, the energy healing. So I think they're going to be pushing for more and more. I believe that there are more medical centers that are now offering acupuncture and even Reiki. I've heard a few that are doing that.
Right.
And I think medical schools are now beginning to realize they can't ignore it anymore.
Right.
So even though they may not be delving into all these classes, I think they're now showing that it's going to take a part.
Right. And I do think that the patients are taking more of their own initiative
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
really be more in control of the decisions that they're making.
Yes.
Instead of just blindly, I know that's kind of being harsh, but blindly taking medicine and not really trying to fix the root of the problem.
I think more and more patients are doing that used to be in the olden days, but with the internet, with the vast amount of information that's out there, they're going to become more and more demanding of natural ways to heal.
Absolutely.
And combining the best of both.
Yeah. And what do you think has been your most successful case that you've treated?
Oh, wow.
I know. If you had to pick one, I know that there's been many.
One that's been so
Dramatic.
dramatic.
Yeah.
Well, dramatic. I think I could just say the rheumatoid arthritis patient that came in. We started with Ondamed. She had a very deep emotional root cause of her illness, and I had gone over all her medical labs and everything, so that I wasn't even sure she was rheumatoid arthritis. She really just had a mild form of osteoarthritis, which is totally different.
Right.
And within, I think, 6 to 9 months, she went from having no knuckles, not able to wear rings. Once she made that emotional root cause, it started to melt away. And I have serial pictures of that, where she started wearing size 6 rings that she was never able to wear for so many years, and they started falling off her hands, and she's been fine for the last 2 years.
So, having said that, because it is more of like an inflammation, correct? How does that come into play with eating certain foods that they say are inflammatory? Is that really still an issue, or is it really?
I think to a degree.
Okay.
I am now beginning to approach that from a different level with the herbal medicine course that I'm doing. I'm learning more and more about Chinese medicine and nutrition. That's also something I'm going to be bringing into. But it has to do with your, what we call the constitution. There's a certain diagnosis of a type that you are, and foods that you should be eating in season, and foods that you should be avoiding. So it's on the level of staying away from foods, but not specifically for inflammation, because your root cause for the inflammation may not be the foods that you're staying away from. It may be something totally different.
Okay, thank you for that. We are going to be wrapping it up. Do you mind holding that up again, and your website and your phone number as we close?
Sure, it's www.searchlightmedical.com, and the telephone number is 845-592-4310.
Thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the next time. Thanks again.